Good evening and welcome to Gravitas. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay. Let's get started. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India has always taken an active role in shaping the country's foreign policy. His supporters call him unconventional and hands-on. His critics say he's travelled outside more than he stayed at home. The pandemic meant a lockdown of sorts for the Prime Minister too. For 15 months, he had no foreign travel. Today, he left India for the first time since the pandemic and he landed in Bangladesh. The country is celebrating 50 years of independence, 50 years of its existence as Bangladesh. Prime Minister Modi is the chief guest for the occasion. And the gesture underscores the significance each side accords to the other. The day was packed with meetings, visits and engagements. On Gravitas tonight, we'll give you a lowdown. We'll also discuss why this day is so special for Bangladesh and why this relationship is so special for India. What lies ahead for the Delhi-Dhaka dynamic? First, as always, Gravitas Global Headlines.
A Dutch company, which is one of the two rescue teams freezing the cargo ship blocking the Suez Canal, has said that the process could take weeks. Vessels around Africa's Cape of Good Hope to be diverted, adding 5 to 6 days of delay to the journey. As a third wave of COVID-19 infections grips Europe, the European Union has stepped up tough rules on the exports of vaccines.
Companies have to honor their contract.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said that AstraZeneca has to catch up and honor the contract, voicing frustration over a massive shortfall in contracted deliveries of AstraZeneca jabs, with inoculation programs running far behind those of the UK and the United States. In a tit-for-tat move, China has announced sanctions on 9 UK individuals and 4 institutions after the United Kingdom imposed sanctions on 4 Chinese officials in response to human rights abuses of Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang province. Britain is set to summon the Chinese envoy to UK while Prime Minister Boris Johnson backed British lawmakers and others sanctioned by China for speaking out in defense of Uyghur Muslims. Johnson said the freedom to speak out in opposition to abuse is fundamental. While grilling the chief executives of Facebook, Google and Twitter, the US lawmakers criticized the social media platforms for their role in the Capitol riots and in the spread of COVID-19 vaccine misinformation. North Korea has said its weapon launch on Thursday was a newly developed tactical guided projectile, declaring that the 2 weapons accurately struck a target 600 kilometers off North Korea's east coast. This after both South Korea and Japan condemned Pyongyang for firing ballistic missiles. At least 50 people have been injured and 32 people reportedly killed after 2 trains collided north of the Egyptian city of Sohag. The health ministry said 36 ambulances had been dispatched to the scene and casualties were being taken away to local hospitals. Poachers killing Africa's elephants for ivory have brought them to the brink of extinction, with the continent's 2 species officially classified as endangered for the first time. Germany began their 2022 World Cup qualification campaign with a convincing 3-0 win over Iceland. The German players displayed support for the migrant workers in 2022 World Cup host nation Qatar after alleged human rights violations in the country. Leon Goretzka, Kai Havertz and Ilkay Gundogan were on target for the 2014 World Champions. Elsewhere, heavyweights Spain were frustrated by Greece in a 1-1 draw. New Zealand completed a 3-0 series clean sweep over Bangladesh with a comprehensive 164-run victory in the final ODI in Wellington. Opting to bat first, the Kiwis rode on maiden centuries from Devon Conway and Daryl Mitchell to put up a strong total of 318 for 6. In reply, Bangladesh didn't offer much and were skittled out for just 154. All-rounder James Neesham was the pick of the bowlers, finishing with a career-best haul of 5 for 27.
Today, Prime Minister Modi of India undertook his first foreign visit in 15 months. His destination was a country very special to India, the country of Bangladesh. The occasion too was very special. Today, Bangladesh is celebrating 50 years of its independence. It is also celebrating 50 years of its relationship with India and the birth centenary of its founding father, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Bangladesh is a young country. It suffered countless atrocities at the hands of Pakistan. India launched a military offensive to end months of bloodshed, oppression and barbarity by the Pakistani army. Pakistan left Bangladesh weak. It had drained the resources and wealth of Bangladesh. Today, 50 years later, we are witnessing a dramatic turnaround. Bangladesh is an economic powerhouse. It engages with South Asia and the world from a position of strength. It has much to celebrate. So Dhaka invited India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be the chief guest for the occasion, and the Indian Prime Minister did not disappoint Dhaka. Earlier today, he kicked off a 2-day visit to Bangladesh. And the fact that this is his first international tour in this pandemic should tell you the importance Delhi attaches to its ties with Dhaka. Upon arrival, Prime Minister Modi was given a red carpet welcome. He was received by Sheikh Hasina herself. The Bangladeshi Prime Minister was at the airport. Before Prime Minister Modi's arrival, an advisor to Sheikh Hasina had said that India is the quote-unquote most important neighbor of Bangladesh. And that showed in the reception that Mr. Modi got today. A salute of 19 guns and a guard of honor was accorded to him at the airport. His first stop was the National Martyrs Memorial in Savar. It's a monument built to honor those who died in the Bangladesh War of Independence. Prime Minister Modi paid his respects to the martyrs. He then held a range of engagements. He met with a delegation of opposition leaders, followed by a group of young achievers and various community leaders, including freedom fighters who participated in the liberation war. They're called the Mukti Jodhas in Bangladesh. In the evening, Prime Minister Modi attended the National Day ceremony. This year, India has awarded the Gandhi Peace Prize to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the founding father of Bangladesh, also Sheikh Hasina's father. It's a posthumous honor, and since Dhaka is celebrating his 100th birth anniversary, the award from India was a very special one for Sheikh Hasina and her sister. Prime Minister Modi came wearing a Mujib jacket gifted to him by Dhaka. In his speech, he shared an interesting story. He said that one of the first protests of his political career was for the freedom of Bangladesh. Prime Minister Modi said that he and his colleagues in the Jan Sangh back in the day had done a satyagraha for Bangladesh. They had protested outside Parliament to push the Indian government to support Bangladesh. And he even went to jail for this. What you see on your screen now is a citation from the Bangladesh government honouring former Indian Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee. It also talks about the Jan Sangh protest to support Bangladesh. Prime Minister Modi today said that he was in his 20s then and part of the protest.
बंधुगण, बांग्लादेश के स्वाधीनता संग्राम को भारत के कोने-कोने से, हर पार्टी से, समाज के हर वर्ग से समर्थन प्राप्त था। तत्कालीन प्रधानमंत्री श्रीमती इंदिरा गांधी जी के प्रयास और उनकी महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका सर्वविदित है। उसी दौर में 6 दिसंबर 1971 को अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी जी ने कहा था, हम न केवल मुक्ति संग्राम में अपने जीवन की आहुति देने वालों के साथ लड़ रहे हैं, लेकिन हम इतिहास को एक नई दिशा देने का भी प्रयत्न कर रहे हैं।
Sheikh Hasina too shared a rather personal story. She recounted how her father and family were assassinated and how India helped her.
The people who grabbed power had tried to wipe out the name of Bangabandhu and the correct history from the minds of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, India was also beside Bangladesh. All the political parties of Bangladesh, of India, all political parties of India are always united in one issue, and that is being beside Bangladesh and the people of Bangladesh.
Both Sheikh Hasina and Prime Minister Modi also mentioned the contribution of former Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in the liberation of Bangladesh. And it is stories like these that bind the two countries and their leaders. History serves as a solid base. The present and the future are built on it. With policies that favour both sides, from trade relations to the supply of vaccines, India and Bangladesh are coming closer as partners. Bangladesh has received 2 million doses of Wuhan virus vaccines as gift. And today, Prime Minister Modi gifted another 1.2 million doses to them. Sheikh Hasina said India is her country's best development partner. Today was just the first half of engagements. Tomorrow, Prime Minister Modi is expected to engage in a wide-ranging conversation with his Bangladeshi counterpart, Sheikh Hasina. A trade pact could be on the cards. Both sides could boost cooperation in health, railway connectivity, border development and startups. It's a developing story, and you'll catch it here on WION. All through the day today, WION has also been bringing you all the updates from Dhaka. WION, in fact, is the only network with a team of correspondents on the ground there, and they have been covering all the events, speaking to the stakeholders and bringing you the most comprehensive coverage of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Bangladesh.
The pandemic has failed to dampen the spirits of Bangladesh. A special occasion began with a special gesture. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina rolled out the red carpet for her Indian friend. She went to the airport to receive Prime Minister Modi.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived in Dhaka with a warm message of friendship. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has received the state guest with utmost respect. He was given a guard of honor at the airport by the Bangladesh government. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit is to take part in the historic celebration of Bangladesh. The visit is even more significant as the two countries have 50 years of diplomatic relations.
It is a big day for Hasina and her country, the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Bangladesh. And Dhaka used this occasion to highlight its special relationship with India. Banners like these were plastered across the city.
We are very delighted that Indian Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of biggest democracy in the world, he is joining us and in these two great events. So that's number one. The focus is Bangabandhu's 100th anniversary and our independence. We are very pleased because India, the largest democracy, they are honoring Bangabandhu.
Soon after he arrived, Prime Minister Modi visited the National Martyr Memorial. He paid tributes to the millions of martyrs of the Liberation War. He also met some of the liberation fighters, better known as Mukti Jodhas in Bangladesh. One of them is Lieutenant Colonel Qazi Sazad Ali Zahir. He was awarded India's fourth highest civilian award, the Padma Shri, for his bravery. He recalls the valor of Indian soldiers who fought alongside him in the Liberation War.
In the battlefield, a number of battlefields, which I was a local boy. I was a boy at that time, when Indian soldiers were wounded and I used to help them and carry their dead bodies also in these two hands. What an honor for me. And also, let's remember one thing which is historically correct. The blood of the Indian soldiers were flowing, are flowing, will flow through the great rivers of Padma, Meghna, Jamuna and Tista and make our land more fertile. The bondage is a bondage of blood. Bondage is bondage of friendship. Our history is tied to bloodshed. We must honor the blood of the martyr soldier.
On the 50th anniversary of its liberation, Bangladesh is keen on highlighting its shared history with India. A digital exhibition in Dhaka celebrates Mahatma Gandhi and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the two founding fathers.
The father of the nation of Bangladesh, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the father of the nation of India, Mahatma Gandhi. So this exhibition is all about celebration of these two personalities who changed the Indian subcontinent and of course are much celebrated till today and will continue to do so. And this behind me is the only picture of Mahatma Gandhi and Mujibur Rahman together. This is the only one. There is none other where both these great personalities are present.
India and Bangladesh are now writing a new chapter in their relationship. Prime Minister Modi penned a piece in a Bangladeshi newspaper where he said Dhaka will remain Delhi's partner as they march towards a golden future. With Siddhant Sibal and Lakmina Jasmine Soma in Dhaka, Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And when we discuss Bangladesh's quest for liberation, there's one name that deserves a special mention. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Bangladesh's founding father, fondly referred to as Banga Bandhu, friend of Bengal. That's what it means, a moniker that he lived up to his entire life. And this is his story. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was born on the 17th of March 1920. Last week was his birth centenary. His father was a court clerk in Gopalganj, a small district in the Bengal province of British India, now in Bangladesh. It is said that from a very young age, Mujibur Rahman showed signs of being a potential leader. Some accounts say that he organized a protest in school for the removal of an inefficient principal. But it was only in 1940 when his political journey truly began. Sheikh Mujib joined the All India Muslim Students Federation. Then in 1943, he joined the Bengal Muslim League. 4 years later, when India was partitioned in 1947, Mujibur Rahman, who was still quite young, chose to stay in the newly formed East Pakistan. He joined the East Pakistan Awami Muslim League. In 1963, he was made the head of the Awami League, and through his moving speeches and charismatic personality, he made it one of the largest political parties in Pakistan on both sides of the border, in fact. Around the same time, there was growing discontent in East Pakistan, what is today Bangladesh, because Islamabad tried to impose Urdu on Bengali speakers. The Urdu-speaking elite looked down upon the Bengali-speaking majority. Plus, the Pakistani army left no opportunity to commit atrocities against Bengalis. So the big flashpoint came in 1970. That's when Bangladesh held its first general election. The Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, secured a landslide victory. The party won 160 seats and the right to form a government. For Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, it also brought the right to become Prime Minister of his region. In Islamabad, the chairman of Pakistan People's Party, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, refused to honor the mandate. He directed the army generals to crush the Bengali opposition. Troops from West Pakistan began pouring into the east. And on the night of March 25, 1971, a vicious crackdown began. Hundreds of Bengali nationalists were murdered. On March 26, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was arrested. On the same day, he signed the official Declaration of Independence. This led to the Liberation War. On December 16, 1971, Indian forces assisted by the Mukti Bahini made Pakistan surrender. Bangladesh was officially formed. In January 1972, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was released from prison. He became the first Prime Minister of the new country, a post that he held for the next 3 years. And in these 3 years, he took several steps to lay a strong foundation of his country for modern-day Bangladesh. He nationalized industries and companies. He initiated land reforms to help millions of poor farmers. He helped Bangladesh enter the United Nations and the non-aligned movement. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman also shared a great equation with former Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. The two leaders signed the 25-year Indo-Bangladesh Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Peace, and this treaty facilitated extensive economic and humanitarian assistance to Dhaka from New Delhi. On the 15th of August 1975, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was assassinated in a military coup. It was one of the worst political massacres at the time. At least 12 members of his family were also killed, and this included his wife, Begum Fazila Tunesa Mujib, and his 3 sons. His 2 daughters, Sheikh Hasina and Rehana, were on a visit to West Germany, so they survived the carnage. For the next 6 years, they remained in self-imposed exile in several countries, including India, and returned home in 1981. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was a true champion of human rights and freedom. Today, Sheikh Hasina is trying to carry forward his legacy as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. India and Bangladesh have a history forged in the battlefield, as you just saw. They both share a border, dozens of rivers, and most importantly, a common culture. India stood by Bangladesh as it made its first steps into the world, and today that relationship has grown into something more mature and consequential. Here's a roundup of the bilateral ties from inception to present day.
Long before colonial cartographers chalked up South Asia, India and Bangladesh were one people, sharing land, rivers and culture. In 1947, that changed. The land we call Bangladesh today became East Pakistan. More than 20 years of hardships followed. By the late 1960s, there were murmurs of dissent. East Pakistan was dreaming of independence, a dream that India would help realize. The Indian army was welcomed as liberators in Dhaka. They had turned the tide against West Pakistani forces, fighting shoulder to shoulder with Bangladeshi freedom fighters. 50 years on, this joint campaign remains the cornerstone of bilateral ties, a relationship forged in the battlefield. The next year, in 1972, Indira Gandhi visited Dhaka. The Indo-Bangladesh Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Peace was signed. The two sides looked set for bigger things. But Mujibur Rahman's assassination in 1975 was a turning point. The army took control, steering the country towards majoritarian politics. Democracy returned in 1991, so did warmer ties with India. In 2010, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina visited New Delhi. It signaled a decade of booming relations. According to a 2014 PEW survey, 70% of Bangladeshis have a favorable opinion of India. Indeed, people on both sides share a brotherly bond. But recently, ties have gone from symbolism to substance. It was a natural progression. The two countries share a 4,096-kilometer border. They share 54 rivers. It's not cooperation out of compulsion, but rather from choice. In 2015, India and Bangladesh signed the Land Border Agreement. Both sides promised to exchange border enclaves, thus settling a decades-long border confusion. A joint rivers commission was set up in 1972. Both sides seldom agree on water sharing, but the conflict remains inside the commission. In 1996, they signed a 30-year treaty on sharing water from the Ganga. 25 years on, the treaty still stands. Bangladesh is India's biggest trading partner in South Asia. Indian exports will soon reach $10 billion. Bangladeshi producers enjoys duty-free and quota-free access to the Indian market, something Dhaka has consistently appreciated. Both countries are members of SAARC, BIMSTEC, the Indian Ocean Rim Association, and the Commonwealth. Recently, Dhaka backed India's election to the UN Security Council. The armed forces from both sides regularly conduct joint drills, like Exercise Sampriti and Milan. The Wuhan virus pandemic tested the relationship. But crises reveal true friends. And when the virus came, India stood by Bangladesh. New Delhi gifted 2 million doses of the COVID vaccine. But like all relationships, this one too isn't perfect. There are differences and there are agent provocateurs. The Teesta River is a key contention. India claims 55% of the river's waters. Bangladesh isn't happy with 45%. Illegal immigration is another issue. Hundreds of migrants cross the porous border, putting economic pressure on India. New Delhi's plan to document illegal migrants and deport them is viewed with concern in Dhaka. Bangladesh's participation in the China-led Belt and Road Initiative is another worry. India interprets this as growing closeness between a key ally and a strategic rival. Despite these challenges, we are witnessing the steel of India-Bangladesh ties in Dhaka right now. If the foundation is strong, tremors aren't a threat. They just reinforce your solid credentials. Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
These last 50 years have not been easy for Bangladesh. The nation was born out of war. It was suppressed under military rule, but none of it could diminish the flame of democracy. As Bangladesh marks 5 decades of nationhood, we've prepared a report card of sorts. And at the outset, let me say this, it's an impressive one. First, we'll talk about the democratic experiment. In 1991, military rule ended and democracy returned to Bangladesh. There was a brief hiccup in 2006 when a caretaker government took control. It was later supported by the military. There was one question on everyone's minds. Would Bangladesh go the Pakistan way? It didn't. 2 years later, the caretaker government held elections. Democracy was back. 2 more general elections followed. The army continues to be powerful, but they operate as allies of the government. There isn't fear that a military coup is just around the corner. And that's crucial for Bangladesh, for any country for that matter, because another military takeover would reverse the gains of the last 3 decades. What about religion? The separation of state and religion is the hallmark of modern nation states. Bangladesh is an interesting case. The constitution designates Islam as state religion. At the same time, it guarantees secularism and freedom of religion. That's the law of the land. But how is it implemented on the ground? Well, we do get reports of attacks on minorities, of Hindu temples being vandalized, but the government has been quick to set the record straight. In May 2018, Sheikh Hasina said secularism is the way forward for Bangladesh. In 2020, she vowed to crack down on anarchy in the name of religion. So the Prime Minister is saying all the right things. Muslims, you must know, make up 90% of Bangladesh's population. The country does have a stake in global Islam. But it does not define itself by that. Dhaka maintains close ties with most Islamic nations, but it stays away from the power politics of the Islamic world. Its leaders do not want to be caliphs or sultans, but they've done more for Muslims than countries with such ambitions. When 700,000 Rohingya Muslims were purged from Myanmar, it was Bangladesh that came to their rescue, not the so-called leaders of the Muslim world. The Cox's Bazar refugee camp is run by the Bangladesh government. It is the largest refugee camp in the world. Almost 600,000 people still live there. Remember, we are not talking about a rich world power here. Bangladesh has its issues, its own citizens to feed. And think of the irony here. A self-sufficient superpower is turning migrants back at its southern border. We're talking about the United States. An economy that is 175 times bigger than Bangladesh. It's a telling story. Which brings us to Bangladesh's biggest achievement, its economy. Bangladesh is classified as a developing economy, the 30th biggest in the world. And it is unexplored territory for producers. The Bangladeshi consumers are taking baby steps into the middle class. So in a couple of years, it could be the toast of foreign brands. In the meanwhile, Bangladesh has become the world's boutique. Its garment industry has exploded in the last 2 decades. It contributes 20% to the country's GDP and makes up 80% of total exports. The target was to hit $50 billion in exports by 2021, but the pandemic saw to that. Bangladesh is the second largest garment exporter in the world after China. All big Western brands source their clothes from here. But there is a downside to this. Sometimes factories are in reality sweatshops. Working conditions can be appalling and child labor is common. It's something that the government will have to work on going forward. But garments, we must tell you, are not Bangladesh's biggest export. It's an idea, an economic idea. It's called microfinance. It is a banking service that targets small businesses and low-income individuals, basically people who will not get a loan from a big bank. From the 1970s, microfinance has grown in Bangladesh. It has lifted 2.5 million people out of poverty. Today, it covers 32 million members and gives out $7.2 billion annually. Leading this campaign is a Grameen Bank. It has more than 9 million borrowers. 97% of them are women. Microfinance in Bangladesh is a success story, one that many other countries have been inspired by. So in 5 decades, Bangladesh has been through more than most countries in the world: a war, a military dictatorship, a migrant crisis, and now a pandemic. And it has emerged stronger from each of these crises. Is it perfect? No, it isn't. But then again, which country is? And much credit for Bangladesh's incredible rise goes to Sheikh Hasina Wajid, the daughter of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and the longest-serving Prime Minister of Bangladesh. She's currently serving her 4th term. And she is one of the only 2 women leaders, women heads of state in Asia. The other one is Tsai Ing-wen of Taiwan. Her soft manner and steely determination have often been discussed in the press, but the world knows little about her political journey and her contribution to the growth of a country. In our next report, we get you the story of Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina's journey has been a fascinating one. She has seen military rule. She has been in detention. She has lived in exile. And she has survived assassination attempts. Her political career began in the late 1960s, when she served as her father's political messenger during his numerous stints in jail. In 1975, she was in West Germany when her father, mother and 3 brothers were assassinated. Left with no one but her sister, Sheikh Hasina spent the next 6 years of her life in exile. In India, she lived at Ring Road in New Delhi's Lajpat Nagar area and then near Pandara Park till 1981. It was during this self-exile that Sheikh Hasina was elected the president of the Awami League. On her return to Dhaka in 1981, she became a prominent and outspoken advocate for democracy. In the years that followed, she fought the military generals of Bangladesh and initiated several steps to secure basic human rights for her countrymen. But it wasn't till 1996 when Sheikh Hasina became the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. In her first stint, she achieved laudable successes in many fields, the most significant being the 30-year Ganges water-sharing treaty with India, the peace accord on the Chittagong Hill Tracts, the construction of the Bangabandhu Bridge, allowances for distressed women, widows and the disabled, and the Asharyan project aimed at eradicating homelessness. In 2009, she was re-elected. This time, she oversaw the resolution of maritime disputes with Myanmar and India. Bangladesh's GDP growth surged to 6%. An estimated 50 million Bangladeshis were elevated to the middle income group. And there was a slump in poverty levels from 38% in 2006 to 24% in 2013. In 2014, she secured the top office for the 3rd time. The per capita income of Bangladesh rose to $1,602. The poverty rate slumped further to 22.4%, while forex reserves rose to $32 billion. In 2017, Bangladesh's GDP stood at $250 billion. And in 2019, the annual GDP growth was at 8.15%. Sheikh Hasina has been bestowed with several honours too. The Mother Teresa Award in 1998, the Indira Gandhi Peace Award in 2009, the UNESCO Peace Tree Award in 2014. She featured on the 59th place in the 2015 Forbes list of the 100 most powerful women. And in 2018, the Time 100 praised her for accepting Rohingya refugees. Sheikh Hasina is also known for her wit and gentle diplomacy. But like any other leader, she's not been able to escape some controversies. Critics say that under her tenure, Bangladesh has witnessed democratic backsliding, an accusation which gets complex the deeper one tries to dig. Bureau Report, WION World is One. The Asian age is upon us. Europe had its time at the helm, so did America, but the 21st century is supposed to be Asia's, and the Delhi-Dhaka dynamic will be crucial to the Asian age. Both countries are entering the new decade with momentum, but can they keep it up? There is a new challenge emerging from the north, and that is China. Beijing is sinking its claws into South Asia, and Bangladesh is the next target. In 2016, Xi Jinping visited Bangladesh for the first time. He pledged $20 billion for the Belt and Road Initiative, China's gift-wrapped debt diplomacy package. For Bangladesh, the BRI is a compulsion. As a developing country, it needs the infrastructure, and China is willing to pay. But for India, this is a strategic threat. Bangladesh is a key ally, and China is a powerful rival. Proximity between the two is worrying. So how should India navigate this? The first priority is to resolve outstanding issues where China is not a stakeholder, like the Teesta water sharing agreement. On Wednesday, India's Foreign Secretary said the agreement would be concluded as early as possible. Water and border are the key contentions. To solve them, India will have to unleash proactive diplomacy. But how will Bangladesh respond? The signals coming from Dhaka are encouraging so far. The government's foreign policy advisor recently called India the most important partner. India and Bangladesh share two key things: history and geography. China has neither in common with Dhaka, and this could be its downfall. But let's be realistic. In our world, money speaks. China is building roads and bridges faster than India is signing agreements. So New Delhi will have to whip out its checkbook too. The vaccine diplomacy was a nice touch, a humanitarian cause with strategic implications. Bangladesh has also become an attractive prospect in the Islamic world. Last year, when Dhaka had a diplomatic standoff with Saudi Arabia, Turkey tried to take advantage. With more than 150 million Muslims, Bangladesh's support will be key in the Islamic power play. But so far, the country has refused to take the bait. These are all external factors. But there are elements within Bangladesh that could derail relations. Today there were protests in a town near Chittagong against what? The Indian Prime Minister's Dhaka visit and the celebrations. The demonstrations turned ugly and the police had to open fire. 4 people were killed, at least 40 were injured. The situation, according to some reports, is escalating and internet access has been restricted in some parts. The group behind this protest was Hifazat-e-Islam. Now, here's a short backgrounder. The Hifazat is a radical Islamist group. One of their major demands is strict blasphemy laws. They have organized mass protests before, and almost all of them have ended with casualties. The Hifazat is emblematic of rising radicalism in Bangladesh. The government is keen on closer ties with India, but groups like these want to sabotage the prospering relationship and embarrass both Delhi and Dhaka. These protests are at best a distraction, an unfortunate and dangerous one. The leaders and policymakers must focus on the big picture here. This decade will shape South Asian politics for many years. Will Bangladesh give in to China's pull? Can India outbid China on infrastructure projects? And will cultural bonds outlast the credit line? I'll end with something India's former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee said on diplomatic relations. Friends can be changed, but not neighbors. That is the power of geography. That's also the power of shared history. Now let's turn to the United States. US President Joe Biden faced the press last evening, his first formal press conference as the President of the US. Taking questions on pretty much all issues under the sun, from migration to Afghanistan to North Korea and China, Biden even had something to say about his predecessor, Donald Trump.
In the last 4 years, the American press had got used to this.
I like real news, not fake news. You're fake news. Fake media, fake news. But they can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news.
So when Joe Biden held his first press conference, he clearly wanted to look different. There were no insults or name-calling. Biden walked into the room with detailed notes, cheat sheets with key facts, even a list of reporters with their mugshots, so that the president may recognize them from his podium. But once the questions began, the new American president didn't hesitate in deviating from the talking points. he blasted at Chinese President Xi Jinping.
Doesn't have a democratic with a small d bone in his body, but he's a smart guy. He's one of the guys like Putin.
Calling North Korea the top foreign policy issue, Biden issued a warning to Pyongyang, but kept the door ajar for negotiations.
If they choose to escalate, we will respond accordingly. But I'm also prepared for some form of diplomacy.
The American president spoke about what he intends to do in Afghanistan. Biden said he wants American troops to leave, but meeting the May 1st deadline would be hard.
The answer is that it's going to be hard to meet the May 1 deadline. Just in terms of tactical reasons, it's hard to get those troops out. But it is not my intention to stay there for a long time.
Do you think it's possible that
we will leave? The question is when we leave.
Do you believe, though, it's possible we could have troops there next year?
I can't picture that being the case. That's real money.
Biden's first press conference wasn't anything like Trump's sparring matches with the press. He did bring up Donald Trump, though, 8 times to be exact. In the end came this admission.
Then, on a related note, have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to. My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss him.
Have you?
No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
Donald Trump may be out of sight for Joe Biden, but he is certainly not out of his mind.
If you do
Bureau
run,
Report,
will Vice
WION,
President Harris
World
be
is
on your
One.
ticket?
I would fully expect that to be.
Now, we've been discussing Bangladesh tonight, so how could we leave out Pakistan? The Prime Minister of Pakistan has tested positive for the Wuhan virus. I know that's old news. It's been at least 6 days. But Imran Khan thinks that 6 days is all it takes for one to recover. Perhaps he's following in the footsteps of a certain Donald Trump. I'm talking about a picture that came out today. Look at this picture. That's Imran Khan Niazi, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, clad in a grey tracksuit and joggers, throwing all caution to the wind and conducting an in-person meeting with his ministers. And no, this image has not been leaked by someone in the opposition. This image has been uploaded by a Pakistani senator, Shibli Faraz. According to Mr. Faraz, this meeting took place in Bani Gala, which happens to be the lavish residence of the Pakistani Prime Minister. Present in this meeting was the media team of the Pakistan government. And let me reiterate this. The Prime Minister is infected with the Wuhan virus. He tested positive. And we thought the job of any media team is to ensure that such images are not released to the public, or probably convince the Prime Minister to do an online call instead. How tough could that be? Look at this. This is British Prime Minister Boris Johnson holding a virtual meeting when he tested positive for the virus in March last year. And this is how sensible governments function when their prime ministers are sick or unwell. But common sense seems to be a limited natural resource in Islamabad. Here's what is in abundance: absurd advisories for the media. I have 2 letters with me tonight, written by the Pakistan Electronic Regulator. These letters are addressed to all media houses in Pakistan. The first one demands that henceforth all media houses should seek the advice of the National Accountability Bureau of Pakistan every time they air a news item regarding the graft body, the National Accountability Bureau, NAB. Now, the letter clearly states that all anchors and guests should refrain from voicing their opinion on any matter involving this body. Let me put it in simpler words. You need the NAB's permission before you put out a report on it. Defeats the whole point, one would say, but who can argue with the government? The second letter is even more interesting. It calls on the Pakistan media to launch a campaign to praise the government on petrol prices. And it states that all TV channels in Pakistan should prepare the public for any likely increase in petrol prices. Now, I've been trying to look at the silver lining in this very dark cloud that is the Pakistan government, and all I could come up with this. They may have 1,000 flaws, but mincing words is not one of them. They do not beat about the bush. They've said very clearly what the media must and must not do to make the government look good. On that rather interesting note, we'll call it a day. We're leaving you as always with Gravitas Images. Thanks very much for watching.